Okay, I am so excited to have Holley back on the show today. You guys gave me so much just sweet feedback after our first conversation, and it was so fun. So, Holley has a book coming out in September. So, when this episode airs, will actually be launch week for the book. So, we were able to time that really well. So, I'm excited about that. So, as you're listening now, can purchase her new book, The Powerful Purpose of Introverts, Why the World Needs You to Be You. And I have been so excited about this book ever since you told me about it after we recorded last time. And so, Holley, I'd love for you to start by just telling us a little bit about your heart behind the book and how it all came to be.
Yes. Well, I feel like it's a book I've been planning on writing since fourth grade. When I got interested in how we're wired and personality, when I told my mom I was going to write this book, she said, "Of course you are. In fourth grade, you did your science project on Kevin Leman's birth order book and analyzed all your little friends to see if they met up with the characteristics." So then I discovered I was an introvert when I was in college and went on to read books about that. And that has been really transformational for me. But I felt like there wasn't really anything that incorporated a faith perspective into that conversation, or that really focused on the strengths that introverts bring to the world, which I feel like are needed more than ever before. And so I've been really grateful that there's more of a conversation about introverts happening, but I just felt like it was incomplete. So I hope this book will fill in some of those gaps.
Yeah, that's awesome. I totally agree with you. And that's why I've been just so excited about it. So I'm curious, when you said in college, you realized that you were an introvert, was it more of like you just kind of unpacking the self-awareness of your personality, or did you take a test? How did you discover that? And then what do you wish somebody would have told you back during that time?
Yeah, it was one evening at a campus ministry, and they had a speaker talking about personality types. And it was one of those moments, it's like a photograph in my mind. Like I remember where I was sitting on this old gray carpet, what I was wearing, red shirt and jean shorts. Like it stood out so clearly because they used the word introvert and I had never heard it before. And I instantly just felt less alone and more understood, and began to look into it for myself. But for a lot of years, I still defined being an introvert by what it wasn't, that I didn't love small talk or I didn't want to go to parties every night. And it's taken me a long time to realize that's not the most important part of the story, or even the biggest part of the story, that the flip side is our strengths and how God designed us and all of those things. But I wish back then someone had said, you know what? You are intentionally created this way on purpose for a purpose. And I would say that to everyone listening, introvert or extrovert. I wish someone had said, you have nothing to prove. You don't need to change who you are. You can just grow into more of who you are. And I think that's the work that God does in our lives. A lot of times we think, I want to change this part of who I am, or I want to get rid of it completely. And God's saying, actually, that's there for a purpose. I just want to refine it and transform it. And so I wish I had known that back then, because I spent a lot of years trying to be someone I wasn't, which led me to the brink of burnout, contributed to some struggles with anxiety and depression and different things. And I wish I'd just known then that it was absolutely more than okay to be an introvert, to be exactly who I was.
Yeah, I think that's really freeing, to just stand in that and then, then be able to put those boundaries in place, or whatever that is for you, maybe that is necessary for you to thrive in exactly who God, made you to be. So I think that's really powerful. And I'm excited. As I was kind of skimming through the book, I haven't read it cover to cover yet, and I'm excited to. I love the letter that you write to extroverts, and I would consider myself an extrovert. So I was drawn to that. I flipped to it and I read it, and I just appreciated how, not only did you write this to encourage introverts, but I think it's such a powerful message for extroverts who love introverts. I want to say that because, that's something you intentionally did in the book that I really appreciated. I'm excited because I do have a lot of introverts in my life, and I want to know how I can love on them and cheer them on better. And so I'm excited that you did that.
If you've ever taken your earrings off at the end of the day with that big sigh of relief, you need to hear about comfy earrings. Comfy earrings are flat back, hypoallergenic earrings designed for 24/7 wear. No poking, no irritation, just beautiful, lightweight earrings that stay comfortable whether you're sleeping, traveling, working out, or running from one project to the next. They're perfect for women with sensitive ears, and they come in so many gorgeous, everyday styles. Check them out at comfyearrings.com or through the link in the description. Refresh your jewelry box with earrings you'll never want to take off. Trust me, your ears will thank you. Now, back to the show. Looking for non-toxic, high-quality soap made by a company you can trust? Let me introduce you to Indigo Sundries, a Christian, family-owned small business that's been handcrafting soap for over 20 years. Every bar is made the old-fashioned way and free from seed oils, parabens, phthalates, sulfates, and all the other things your skin just doesn't need. Just clean, skin-loving ingredients that actually leave you feeling moisturized and refreshed. Whether you love a good fragrance, prefer essential oils, or need a simple unscented bar, Indigo Sundries has something for everyone, plus liquid soaps, room sprays, and beard products too. Get free shipping on orders over $50, and don't forget to use code Rebecca10 for 10% off at checkout. Treat your skin to the good stuff at indigosundries.com.
I love that. And one of my biggest fears in writing the books was that extroverts would think I was playing favorites with introverts, And it wasn't that. It just happens to be I am an introvert. That's where I'm coming from. But I feel just as strongly that extroverts should be exactly who God created them to be, because I think we're a complementary pairing. It makes me really excited when I look at how we're designed. I'm like, we are meant to go together and we are better together. And so when everyone is being who they're created to be, introvert or extrovert, that's when we really look like the body of Christ and reflect the image of God. And so I'm so glad that was helpful for you. And I say the book is for introverts or people who love, lead, or share life with one. And so I talked to someone yesterday who said, I just read the book and my husband's an introvert and I'm an extrovert. And we had this huge aha moment in our marriage. And so
that's so cool.
I'm so glad. So thank you for mentioning that, because that is my heart. Yeah. And I did create a 1-minute what % introvert are you quiz on my site. So I actually have a lot of people say, I thought I was an extrovert, but I'm actually an introvert. So it might be interesting.
I need to go take it, because there's a lot. I mean, I feel like most personality tests measure either on a scale or they tell you, either way. And sometimes, I know there's one in particular I took for a job in the past that put you on a scale, like on a spectrum, I guess. And I was like maybe 10% on the other side towards extrovert in the context of that test, that depending on the situation, or I guess how long I had been with people, et cetera, I could flip either way. And that was interesting to me because I do see that to be true in my life. I think being around people fills me up, but I also have a capacity for that. And when I hit that, I need to be by myself, So I do know that I have a little bit of both, but there's so much of me that's filled up by people.
Yeah, on a continuum, because none of us are 100% introvert or extrovert. We all land somewhere on a continuum. And we all use both parts, our introvert part and our extrovert part. It's kind of like being right or left-handed. And so we use both our hands all the time, every day. It's just for certain tasks and in certain situations, we naturally use one more. And that's what it's like to be an introvert or extrovert, that we all have both, but there's one that we naturally feel more comfortable with and are wired to have more strengths in.
Yeah, that's so interesting. That kind of goes into the next question, which is introversion and extroversion are not about our personality, which is, I think, how we label it so often, but rather how we're physically wired. And so is there anything else in that you would want to kind of explain to listeners?
Yeah, I was amazed when I started really digging into the research and the studies about introverts and extroverts that it is physical, that it really comes down to brain science. So short version, we differ in 3 primary ways. The primary neurotransmitter, which is just a chemical messenger in our brains that we rely on. There's one called dopamine that acts kind of like caffeine, that revs us up and energizes us. Extroverts are more drawn to that and they need more of it. Introverts are kind of like, I'm good. I have a good level of dopamine already. And introverts are more drawn to acetylcholine, which is the neurotransmitter that's released when we turn inward and are reflective or in quieter, less stimulating environments like coffee with one friend. So it's more like tea. So that's one way. And then we differ in which division of the nervous system we rely on more, parasympathetic or sympathetic. And again, that's the difference between the side that revs us up and energizes us and the side that helps us relax and reflect and turn more inward. And then we even use a different primary brain pathway. So extroverts use a shorter, faster brain pathway, and introverts use a more complex brain pathway that goes through several different areas, the past, present, and future. And so I'll see introverts who say, I get frustrated with myself because I need time to process. I wish I could just instantly think on my feet, like some of my extrovert colleagues or whatever. And I say, no, that's actually you using that God-given, more complex brain pathway. And so always give yourself permission to say, hey, this really matters to me. Just give me a minute to think about it. And it's important for extroverts to know that when an introvert isn't responding immediately, it's because they're processing. They're not holding back. They're just going through that processing. And so like in a meeting where you have someone say, hey, I have a great idea. That's probably extrovert, short, fast pathway. And then an introvert says, okay, let's think through what needs to be in place for that to happen. Then the extrovert says, all right, it's time to make a decision. And then the introvert says, I'll follow up and see, and so you can see in a situation like that, how the two work really well together. And again, we can both use both sides, but there's just one we tend to lean toward a little more naturally.
That's so interesting because as I'm just sitting back thinking, okay, in different areas of my own life, if I'm talking about something creative, like I can spitball stuff all day long. And I love that. But now let me think about my marriage and I think about something more like, let's say I get in an argument with my husband, like I need some time to process. And we come back to that a lot because my husband is an extrovert. And there have been many times where I've had to say like, I need some time before we come back and talk about this again, or whatever. And so for me, that's where I see like the differentiator. I think in different areas of my life, maybe those pathways may be different. Okay.
Yeah, because you do have access to both. We all use both pathways.
Yeah.
There's just one kind of, if we're put on the spot, that naturally kind of activates quicker. Where it's more likely to be our go-to, but we can definitely use the secondary one as a backup or in certain situation where it's a better fit. So again, the whole thing of it's introvert and extrovert, it's not all or nothing. We all have access to all these things. It's just about which one we naturally lean toward.
And I'm thinking even in another part of a lot of personality tests is like thinking versus feeling. And for me, as I think about those things, I think if I'm in my thinker part of my brain and I feel a freedom to just fail or be wrong or not have to get it right the first time I say it, then I'm good with that. But if it's something where words really matter and it's more of like a feeling type conversation, that's where I think I also maybe need time. I don't know.
So I think even asking ourselves, okay, knowing that in any given situation, I can pull on either side of who I am. Like which one do I want for the situation? Like when I go to a conference and I need to be on, then I'm going to say, all right, I'm going to sort of activate the extrovert part of me for this situation for a certain period of time, knowing that it's not going to be sustainable for me forever and ever, but I can totally do it for the 2 hours that I need to. And so I think we can look at parts of our personalities as limitations when really they're just options, like probably an introvert isn't going to want to live at a party 24/7 but can we do it when we need to? Absolutely. And vice versa. Is an extrovert going to want to sit in silence, all the time? No. But can you do it when it's important? Of course you can. And so just knowing where our natural strengths lie, but also understanding we have access to so much more than just those strengths.
And that brings me to self-awareness, right? That's a huge piece of all of this. It's so crucial to this whole conversation. And what listeners may or may not know is you're also a life coach. And so I'd be curious what you would share, tools that you might be able to share that you think have been helpful to increase self-awareness kind of in this whole conversation.
Yeah. Well, I think we can approach life in 3 different ways: from a place of self-focus, self-criticism, or self-awareness. And so self-focus is, it's all about me, it's pride. Self-criticism is, it's never about me, I'm criticizing myself all the time. And then self-awareness is just an understanding who God made us in a way that empowers us to better love and serve those around us. And so I think self-awareness, a lot of people think, oh, that's selfish, but it's not. They're thinking of self-focus, or they're worried about getting dragged into self-criticism. But self-awareness is just stewarding well who God made us. It's just part of understanding our gifts and strengths so that we can use them. And so I think there are a lot of practical tools that help with that. And of course, the Myers-Briggs is a great personality test that will give people, not only are you an introvert or extrovert, but some elements of personality, like you mentioned, thinker, feeler. I think the Enneagram is a popular tool right now that gives us insight into some of our motivations. I love one that a lot of people haven't heard of is the 4 Tendencies quiz by Gretchen Rubin. And it tells you how you respond to inner and outer expectations. And so I especially recommend it if someone is having trouble getting themselves to do something they want to do. It is probably because they're not in alignment with their tendency. And so that's a great little tool. And then I think the 5 love languages, which most of us are familiar with, but understanding, retaking that and looking at it from the perspective of, how is this different for introverts and extroverts?
Yeah.
Because it's not just what love language do you speak, but what volume do you need it spoken in?
Oh,
because that looks really different for introverts and extroverts.
That's interesting. Yeah. Okay. I have so much homework to do. Good. And I don't know, Holley, if we've talked about this, but what's your Enneagram number?
INFJ.
Wait.
Sorry.
INFJ.
Are you? So there you go.
Yeah.
So we're wired really similar, just one different.
That is similar.
Sorry. Enneagram 1.
Okay.
With a
3.
strong 9 wing.
See that? I could see that. Okay. So like we talked about earlier, one of the things that God really put on your heart is just being able to create more meaningful connections with introverts in our lives. And so I'd love for you to share, what do you believe we can learn from introverts as extroverts that will help us have more meaningful connections in our lives?
Well, I think we live in a time in history when we are really pushed to have quantity of relationships, that we need to connect with everyone all the time, everywhere, beyond social media, 24/7. Introverts are naturally drawn to quality over quantity in relationship. And a lot of that has to do with how we're wired. We're more impacted by external stimulation, which is anything coming into our brains or nervous systems from the outside. And so having fewer people who are very stimulating in our lives is just a better fit for us. And so we tend to want to go deep instead of wide, and to focus more on quality over quantity. And of course, extroverts do that too. I mean, some of the most loving, meaningful, relationship-filled people I know are extroverts. But if we're just talking about temperament in vague generalities, I would say that is something, one, that introverts can say, it's okay that I'm that way, because a lot of times they feel guilt or shame about not being everywhere all the time with everyone.
Yeah.
Or if extroverts are in a place where they're feeling overwhelmed by the amount of people in their life or the amount of socializing they're expected to do, to take their cue from introverts and say, it's okay if I want to just focus on kind of my people and let some of these other things go.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I could totally see that. And one thing you said in that I would love to debunk is the introvert shame. So I think that is such a thing. I don't know. How would you encourage somebody, maybe on either side, if they are an introvert or if they love an extrovert, to rid themselves of that?
It's so hard. I think especially in faith culture, we can
Yeah.
get really confused about thinking my love for God and people is measured on the amount of relationships I have, not the depth or quality. And so when I looked into scripture to see if I could find anything like that, I didn't find quantity anywhere. Like in 1 Corinthians 13, the love chapter, it says love is patient, love is kind. Those are all verbs that you use one person at a time. And so it's about how we treat whoever is in front of us in any given moment. That might be one person, or sometimes it might be 1,000.
Yeah.
And so just reframing that, saying it's not about the amount of people in our lives. It's about how we treat each person God places in our path.
Yeah.
And also that if we connect with God in different ways than some of what we see around us, that's okay too. Because I tell people, think about how you feel closest to others in your life. So for me, it's having coffee with one person where I can fully focus and engage, in a meaningful way. And so one day I thought, why don't I have coffee with Jesus? This is the way he's wired me to be. And honestly, that's what I do. And I feel his presence a lot more than when I'm in a worship service surrounded by a lot of people and loud music. I can get distracted and overwhelmed. And for a long time, that made me feel like maybe I'm not a good Christian. But I connect with God in the way he created me to connect with him. And that doesn't mean I don't engage in other ways, but I can let myself off the hook for saying this particular way is how I have to feel closest to him because it looks like how other people do. So just saying, who did God make me to be? How did he create me to love? And then giving yourself permission to lean into that, no matter what other people are telling you it has to look like.
Yeah. And that brings me back to your subtitle, which is why the world needs you to be you. And I love that because I think everything we're talking about brings us back to, when we see all this through the right lens, it brings freedom. And in that freedom, we're able to serve others better and bring God glory in a more full way that he designed us to do. This is so good. I'm so excited for people to jump on this. And I actually posted a picture on Instagram this week just of some book covers of authors I was talking to this week. And I had several people either DM me or comment on the post and say, oh, wow, I'm excited to read the Introvert book. This sounds like something I really need. And so I'm just really pumped for this to go out into the world. And listeners will be able to check it out by the time this comes out, which is great. So Holley, I'd love for you to share where they can take your super quick quiz, where they can get in contact with you, order the book, all those things.
Yes, you can go to my site, hollygirth.com. If you want specifically the introvert things, it's hollygirth.com/introverts. And the quiz is on my site. So you can take it. It takes 1 minute. And you can share your results and see what your friends are too. And if they get it when this airs, they can still get the pre-order bonuses. It'll be the absolute last week that they're available. So if they get the book, they also get a new mini course I created called 7 Ways to Thrive as an Introvert, and a free introvert strengths assessment, and a free audio version of the book. And
wow.
Yes, it's like a lot of things. So, and if you gift the book to someone else who's an introvert in your life, you can gift the bonuses also.
Awesome.
So for extroverts wanting something super awesome to gift an introvert they love and want to support, that is totally doable too. So yeah, I would love for everyone to come by and check all of that out.
Cool. Awesome. Well, Holley, this has been so much fun. We will have to do it again. My listeners love you, and it's great to have you back. And thanks for being my guest today.
Thanks, Rebecca.